Hello everybody, this is Kenneth Marks of the Ancestor Hunt. Today I'm going to show you a really easy way to create a checklist for World War I draft cards. These are some of my favorite documents to utilize in my family history research because there is such an abundance of information on them. But first, let's talk about the draft for World War I. There were three registrations. The first was June of 1917, and that was for men between the ages of 21 and 31. The second registration was exactly 1 year later, and that was for men who had turned 21 in the previous year. And the third and final registration was in September of 1918, and that was for men who were born between September of 1872 and September of 1900. So let's take a quick look at a couple of those draft cards, shall we? Here's one from the third registration, and it includes a lot of demographic information plus some additional, but I want to point out some of the uniqueness of these particular documents. First of all, it's the full name of the individual, of course, but oftentimes the middle name is included, which is one of the only places you can actually get the person's middle name. His address, his age at the time of registration, his birth date, useful information, race, citizenship, his current occupation at the time of the registration, the name or the address of his employer, and in many cases, if he was married, the name of his wife. So if there isn't a marriage record, this could help you in discovering who his wife is, or in the case of the wife, discover who her husband was. And then on the second page is some additional information which is also unique. It has his height, his build, color of his eyes, and color of his hair. It doesn't have the exact 5'9" or 142 pounds or whatever, but it does describe whether he is tall, medium, or short, slender, medium, or stout. And then in this case, brown eyes and black hair. So let's take a look at an additional one or two. This one is from the same third registration. Here's one from the first registration, and in this case it has a similar demographic information and description of what he looked like. In this case, the person was tall and medium build, blue eyes, dark brown hair. But this one had some additional information that the third registration did not have, and that is the place of his birth, which is obviously useful in doing your family history research. So let's get started building our checklist, shall we? First of all, we're going to go to our genealogy software. In this case, I use Ancestral Quest, but many others have the same filtering and extraction capabilities. So what I would encourage you, if you use another piece of software for your genealogy database, to look into their filtering capability. What we're going to do is we're going to create a custom report, and I'm going to select the individuals. I'm going to define the fields that I want to do the algorithm on to determine who was born between 1872 and 1900. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to retrieve a previously defined checklist that I have done the equation on, and you can see the equation here. The birth date has to be greater than 1871, i.e. 1872 or greater, less than 1901, which would be 1900 or earlier. Obviously, it has to be a male, and the person is alive at the time of the registration, which means if he was born in 1872 or greater, his death date has to be obviously greater than 1916, or he was dead before the registration and of course would not be registered. Or if I do not know his death date, which means it would be blank in my database, then it does not exist. So let's select those individuals, and you can see that the count is 97 in my particular database, and that's what we need to know. Next of all, we're going to select a format for the report. In this case, I've already built it, and you see it here at the bottom. I'm going to open it up, and let's preview it. And you can see here are the names of the young men who fit the equation, their birth date, and their birthplace. And there's more than one page here, as you can see. Let's close that out. You could indeed print that and then just do a hand checklist if you want, but I don't like to do that because that requires a piece of paper that I have to carry around. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this to a text file, and that will be used to import into Excel using their text import wizard. So I'm going to print that report to a .txt file, And I'll save it on my desktop. We'll call it demo. There we go. And I'm going to review it because there's a minor problem in the Ancestral Quest software when it does this creation of a TXT file. For some reason, it adds some additional information right in the very first few characters. So I'm going to delete that. I will save. And there we go. Now I'm done with my database, so I'm going to close out of that. And let's go into Excel. I've got a brand new open spreadsheet, and I'm going to import that TXT file. So I'm going to open it up. And again, we put that on our desktop, so let's look at that. And we need to define it that it is a .txt file. There we go. And let's scroll down and find it. There it is, demo.txt. I'm going to open it. And what that does is it automatically brings up the text import wizard. And we're going to go through this for a minute or two to actually define where the fields go. It is a delimited type of data file. As you can see, here's the quotes around the name, and the delimiter is a comma. So we're going to say it delimited. We're going to go hit next, and we set the delimiter. It is a comma. The text qualifier is a double quote, and there you can see the fields. There's the names, birth date, and the birthplace. So we're going to go to finish, and there indeed is the list of the gentlemen who were registered for the draft for World War I. Now I'm not going to bore you with formatting this because I've already done it. And so let's bring up that particular file and show you what my final draft card checklist looks like. I've added a column for the status, which tells me if I have indeed found that draft card, and it is on my computer somewhere with the actual images of the draft card. And then also, if the person was not in the United States at the time of the World War I draft, for example, they could be in a foreign country, have not immigrated yet, or they haven't immigrated at all, then I go through and put an N. So as I find them, I put an F. And then in this case, for example, Carl Braunhardt did not immigrate until 1940s, so I would have put an N in here. And that's it. I formatted. Again, the column is a status, the name, birth date, birth location, and we'll scroll down and look at the rest of the list. As you can see, I've found most of them. I still have quite a bit to find, but I have found a lot. And I've done a little thing at the bottom just to keep track. The total count of the gentleman that I need to find is 97. 7 of them have an N, which means they're not in the U.S. I have found 65, and I have 25 to be found. So I have about 72% that are done. And basically, that is all there is to it. Go into your genealogy database, do a filter and an extraction, copy it to a .txt file, then you use the text import wizard in Excel, and there's your checklist. It is that simple. So that's all there is to it. It's a real easy way to create a checklist of all your research for World War I draft cards, those that you have found and those that you have yet to find. Using your genealogy database filtering capability, you extract those records into a .txt file, use the text import wizard in Excel, create your checklist in Excel, and now you can keep track of those that you have found and those that you need to find. So have fun researching the World War I draft cards. Use the Excel checklist to keep track, and I hope you are quite successful. Thank you for listening, and happy hunting.